not do nearly enough for the system's most talented and or hardworking students, and it shows. Over the years, you have taken away many incentives, especially at the middle school. Thank you. You abolished the CPS honor roll several years ago, even though dozens of parents in this very room begged you not to do it. But a single parent, not a single parent speaking on the issue favored abolition. But you let the then principal do it anyway. NPS eliminated Algebra 1 from the CPS curriculum, even though then Superintendent Michael Kozort regarded this course to be the jewel of the school for years. Other Massachusetts school districts retain this course at the middle school level, and of course, worldwide, almost everybody takes algebra in the 8th grade. The only big dollar reform from the 2013-2014 district-wide math task force was doubling the daily time that 6th grade spent on math. An additional teacher was hired, but the principal refused to separate the high performers from the low performers. The advanced students could not pursue math to the limits of their abilities and instead were forced to waste the extra time in utter boredom. The so-called reform collapsed in total failure after 3 years and was eliminated. CPS math continued its free fall. It shows. Whereas 38% of 7th and 8th grade students across the state met expectations in math in 2023, only 19% of Nantucket 7th graders met math expectations that year, and only 16% of 8th graders did so. That meant that 84% of last year's freshman class at the high school had failed to meet math expectations in the 8th grade. It shows. Whereas 7% of Massachusetts students exceeded expectations in math in grades 3 to 8 in 2023, only 1% of Nantucket students in grades 3 through 8 exceeded math expectations. If we assume a reasonable goal for Nantucket would be 4 to 5% due to our disproportionate number of English learners, that means that you still fail to meet the needs of 75 to 80% of our most talented and or hardest working students. At the high school, 3% exceeded math expectations in 2023 compared to 10% statewide. It shows the collapse of math at CPS affects students in high school, whereas more than 60% of students statewide scored a 3, 4, or 5 on the AP statistics test during the last 3 years. Only 21% of Nantucket students achieved this level. Now, according to the math pathways that will be discussed tonight, you are denying dozens and dozens of talented and or hardworking Nantucket students the opportunity to take AP pre-calculus and showcase their math talents to college administrators. Taxpayers provide Nantucket Public Schools $50 million per year and nearly $30,000 per student, and you are failing to meet the needs of our most talented and or hardest working students in math. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that has public comment? Seeing none, we will close public comment and move on. Thank you, Mr. Dixon. All right, Superintendent's update.
Yes. All right, good evening, everyone. So we had a fantastic opening week with teachers last week. It was chock full of some great professional development, but still allowed time for staff to get their classrooms set up and to feel prepared to welcome students today. Thank you to those of you who were able to attend Monday's keynote speaker, Ken Williams, who motivated us to start with equity rather than differences. He inspired teachers and administrators to move towards professional learning communities across the district, to identify essential learning outcomes for all students, to set regular data and evidence review, and to put important interventions into place for students who need support or for those who need to be challenged more. It was a great message that we could certainly all connect to. On Tuesday, we held a district safety day, the first ever, which was full of important activities such as lockdown and secure training. Secure is now the new word for lockout. which we will all get used to. CPR first aid training for those in our district response team, Raptor Technologies training, and tabletop exercises around what to do in several emergencies. The district is also working with Thomas Catalano, who is someone that we have asked to come. He's a former Secret Service agent, and he is doing an audit on safety in our district. So we will have the results to that shortly that we can certainly share with you and certainly put into place the changes that are necessary. On Wednesday and Thursday, these were dedicated really to professional development around math, professional learning communities, which came out of the Ken Williams keynote speech, and a lot of what we had been doing over the summer and looking at the importance of having professional learning communities run by teachers. Responsive classroom at CPS, and several other areas of opportunity for professional learning. Our ESL and special education departments also met vertically to review practices and set some objectives for the year. And on Thursday, all staff were provided initial training on the new IEP form from the Department of Education and the new electronic platform called EdPlan. So all in all, it was a very busy but productive week, and it prepared us today for today and for the year ahead. So today, September 3rd, we opened our doors to grades 1 through 12. It's really one of my favorite days to see everyone back. So good to see smiling faces and excited students. Everyone had the opportunity to meet their new teachers and reconnect with friends that they had not seen over the summer. Tomorrow, our NES will welcome kindergarten and then pre-K starting on Monday. So I look forward to spending lots of time this week in the buildings, greeting students and checking in on teachers, and it's really the best part of my job. So that's it for that, and I'm happy to move on to student enrollment unless you have questions.
Questions?
Great. Okay. So student enrollment. So as of this morning, we have 1,731 students enrolled in our school district, the highest number that we have seen to date. Our biggest jump was in enrollment at NIS with an additional 20 students since last June. Coming into second place is at the high school with an additional 16 students since June. And ES enrollment is currently 19 students lower than it was in June, and CPS has stayed almost exactly the same. So we know that this number may fluctuate over the next several weeks and days, but we know that it is really important to watch our enrollment numbers carefully. As we continue to grow, we have to keep in mind that our facilities do have limitations, and we must constantly find ways to support our increasing numbers. So that is a discussion that we will continue to have over the course of this year and moving into future years. If we continue to see those numbers grow, we may be in the market for a new school building at some point in the coming years. So I have any questions about enrollment? I'm happy to move on to the calendar change.
Have we brought this subject up with anybody?
The new school building? Yes, we have. We
Okay.
have spoken with town about this and are just trying to determine when we would need to put this into the future. The most challenging part of planning for a new school building is looking at competing priorities from the town, and we have a lot coming out. As you know, our island home is up for complete redo, and coastal resiliency is an issue. There's a lot happening, and so it's going to be a challenge to figure out when the best year is to put this in place, but we may not have a choice, which means we may be looking at something earlier than we originally imagined. But right now we are able to accommodate the numbers that we have. The important thing is that we watch carefully and see what that looks like over time this year, and continue to have those conversations with town. So
I know before when before we started work on the NIS building, we had sort of worked with town for the live births and projections of what would happen, and we did have a graph that was projected, I think, out 10 years, maybe more. So I wonder if that's something that we should go back to.
it's possible. I think there are a couple of things to consider, and if you look at the enrollment chart, we do have a few things that we need to consider. We're still getting through the bubble, the NIS bubble at the high school. So our high school numbers are high, but they are high because of that NIS bubble. We also see a smaller enrollment number at NES, and that helps us to understand where we're heading, although this year's kindergarten class is quite high. But we have to consider where all of that leads. I think we will see a year of relief next year when we start to see some graduations from the bubble coming through the high school. However, we need to look at, again, projections, births, et cetera. So yes, that's going to be part of the study that we start to conduct.
Any questions from anybody else on this? Chantal?
I'm curious, what's the magic number before the bubble pops? And how do we prepare ourselves so that we don't wait for it to pop before we decide that we need to put another trailer in?
That's a good question. It's a very good question. So we will need to do a full study on that to figure out what the number is. We're not close yet, but we also have to consider, and we've talked about this quite a bit as a district leadership team, and also in the campus-wide master plan team. There is a committee that does meet, made up of school leadership, but also others in the community. We need to look at what our students need as we prepare them for future careers. And right now, our school buildings do not have the same types of accessible structures that are needed for a different kind of career that's available to students. And so it's challenging, and we must start thinking ahead of around that, whether it's maker spaces, whether it's offering different types of equipment that people can use. It's looking at vocational areas. All of that needs to be looked at carefully, because some of our buildings are quite old. And we do need to look at how we can provide a more innovative learning environment for our students, because they are going to be doing careers that haven't even been thought up yet. we don't exist yet, but that keeps moving so quickly that we at least need to be able to provide them the appropriate learning space for that. So that's another piece.
It just seems that it might be worth it to start opening that conversation and creating a team to discuss, particularly with the vacant buildings that are around town. I mean, just think sort of innovatively about spaces that could be utilized.
I'm happy to bring that to the campus-wide master plan team and invite you to come. It's an open meeting,
great.
so please
Thank you.
feel free to come.
I think to your point, it's the innovation and the changing in learning, or what we're preparing our students for at the end of graduation. It's already happening. So I don't know that we can wait to see. I think that is probably a good idea to start now, and then certainly can go alongside with the enrollment, but the vision of a graduate is changing as we speak. So,
Agreed.
yeah. Okay. Thank you, Beth.
Sure. May I continue with calendar changes? So just a few things. You have an updated calendar on your at your space. I mentioned on opening day that we would propose 2 calendar changes. First of all, one is we would like to move the half-day PD day in September from Wednesday, September 25th, which was its original time, to Tuesday, September 17th, in order to accommodate setup and breakdown of the special town meeting later that day. With the projected number of individuals coming to special town meeting, much more space is needed, and it will affect our abilities to carry on as usual during the day while people are setting up. So the ability to move the half day is very much appreciated, not only by our facilities team, but it doesn't affect us with regard to learning. So. The other change is to add a half day for all students and staff on Tuesday, November 26th, so that as many of us as possible can attend the Island Cup football game at Fenway Park, which starts at 5 p.m. that evening. There will be many students and staff that will want to and need to attend. Some are players, others are involved in things such as the pep band. Hopefully that will be invited. And it's important, I think, to have that opportunity. I hope that you will consider it, and positively.
Have we thought of speaking to the steamship or the High Line? Because if the game's at 5 It's over at 7. And I
Yes.
think the last boat is around 8.
Yes, I believe that that Mr. Lombardi has begun talks with the with both actually, particularly Highland for a passenger ferry to see if we can have a late passenger ferry to get back. So. Sure. So I said there that Mr. Lombardi, our athletic director, is in. Am I right? He's giving me a thumbs up. So in talks with the steamship and the Highline, I believe it's the Highline for a passenger ferry back, fast ferry to come back that day at a much later time, so they can get people back.
So we're looking for a 9:45
Okay.
to come back, IS to Nantucket, and we're almost there. So it's looking like it's going to happen.
Great.
That's great.
Great.
Because if not, we're going to have a lot of hotel rooms.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Okay.
Shall we, I know we have a vote on, coming up for the November 26th, but do we need to include in that same vote the move from the 25th to the 17th?
You can, but it's not really necessary. We just wanted to kind of make you aware. It's not
Okay.
changing anything within our school.
That was already voted on last time for the 17th.
That's true. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Vote on this.
It's already voted on.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, Katie. Okay, anything else?
That's it. Thank you.
Okay. All right, moving on to presentations and discussions. First up, we have Taylor Fassey coming up with Amy Knapp to talk about Title I and the summer programming. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Taylor Fassey. I'm a kindergarten teacher during the year, and I was a Title I coordinator for the summer program.
Hi, I'm Amy Knapp. I teach 4th grade during the school year, and I was the ESY coordinator.
So, again, hello.
Hello.
So our goal for summer school at Nantucket Public School Summer School, our mission is to foster a dynamic and inclusive learning environment that nurtures curiosity, creativity, and academic growth for students, pre-K through 12. We are dedicated to providing engaging, personalized educational experiences that support each student's unique needs and interests while promoting resilience, collaboration, and a love of learning. Our goal is to empower students to build a strong foundation for future success and inspire a lifelong passion for knowledge.
So this summer we had 202 students enrolled in both programs. This is how it split up between the two programs. I think it comes up later in the presentation, but this year one slight change is we combined Title I with Title III. So if you remember from last year, that's why that part is missing. But between the two, 202 students.
A positive thing that we were able to offer this year for all students was the use of being picked up and dropped off by the bus. So that's why our enrollment increased by 48.5%.
Huge.
There were 17 classrooms pre-K to 5, and then 4 classrooms in the middle school and high school. Some things that stayed the same from previous years is we kept the class sizes small. We really tried to cap it at 15. We kept the field trips. Those were really well received. The curriculum stayed the same as last summer and some from the previous summer as well. And we had a lot of the returning staff from previous years.
As Taylor mentioned already, the one big change that we had this year was that Title I and Title III were combined.
So just wanted to share some pictures of learning that happened this year. One thing I wanted to highlight as well is we continue to use the same math program as last summer. So a lot of the teachers had already taught it. They taught it again this year. Mandy found a pre and post assessment that we could use. And as you'll see, most of the classrooms showed an increase between that pre and post. Most classrooms showed an increase, and an overall average of the program showed an increase. So this curriculum we've been using was really successful, and the kids are making clear progress. Just some more learning pictures.
They one of the things that they got to do this year, they continued being able to go to the garden, which is on the school campus, which is a nice learning experience for the children.
Which I think is really good.
And there it is.
So again, they got to go to the garden twice throughout the 5 weeks, and then they connect it back to their learning in the classrooms. We worked with Ella to plan those visits.
They also had the chance of doing Mariah Mitchell field trips. One of them was going to the Natural Science Museum, along with going to the aquarium, which the kids all loved, which gives them the opportunity to see what, Nantucket coastline is all about.
Even amidst their moves, they were flexible with us. And we also visited the old mill again. Some classrooms did go to the Whaling Museum, but we mainly focused on the old mill just because they don't get to go there as often. And they work with Maura Wendelken there, and she's really amazing as well.
And then they get to go out to the Life Saving Museum, which I think has done an amazing job with their improvements in the building, as well as their hands-on activities with the students.
We continued last year. We started a summer school showcase to show a piece of work that the students were proud of, and we continue with that this year. Unfortunately, we weren't as lucky with the weather, and it was a little drizzly, so we had to move it under the NIS overhang, but still had lots of parents come to see what their kids had been working on. I think there's one more. There's more slide.
Thank you. Any questions, comments, suggestions?
Tim, questions?
No, thank you. It sounds like education and fun.
Chantel?
Again, you guys make summer school really fun, but I'm just curious what happened with the gap in, I'm guessing that's 1A and 1B, with such great progress showing around that.
In the 2 first grade rooms.
Yeah.
It really is interesting because all of the first grade teachers were in-district teachers, so they're experienced. And we did have a little bit of attendance staff in that area, so I'm guessing that might have something to do with it, but definitely something to keep track of for next year.
Esmeralda?
No questions, just want to say that you guys do an amazing job for the summer school. I know one of my child went there this summer, and he loved it. He looked forward to going to summer school. And actually his younger brother was upset that he was not chosen to go to summer school. But fantastic job.
Laura?
Again, I echo what everyone has said, and congratulations on returning staff, because I'm sure that, that's a huge thing, because that's not always the way, I know, securing summer staff, so, but bravo.
I echo what everybody else has said as far as the quality and the opportunity to have such a fun program for the summer. One question I have is with the data that you collected pre and post, does that follow individual students to their classroom? Does the classroom teacher then get that information so that they can see the progress?
Because of the in-district staff working this summer, I think the communication is there. When they have, particularly when they see so much growth or when they have concerns, they're able to share that. with the classroom teacher. As far as the physical assessment, not yet, but I think that it exists if the teacher was curious and wanted to see that.
And do parents get a report at the end of the year?
Yes.
Yeah, they do.
They, ESY sends home reports for all of their students.
Well, thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Beth, any comments?
No, just thank you both. I really appreciate it. It's always fantastic to see the children in the garden when they come over to visit. And I think that the partnerships that we have with our community partners are really special. And we're very lucky that they can have fun at summer school. There's always this question of whether summer school is, fun. It's summer school. So by the reason that, we are so successful, I think, is that we have so many great opportunities for them to enjoy their time and still learn at the same time. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to the school handbooks. And would you like to go in order of NES and invite Kim Albertson up first? Thank you.
Thank you. Hello,
Kim.
Kim Albertson, Assistant Principal for NES. Working hand in hand with Kim Kubish, our principal, and our school council. So you have a copy of our handbook, and truly this was the entire year's worth. This spring, our school council really looked at our handbook, dug in deep, and they made really all the suggestions and changes that are within our book. We really condensed a lot of the language because it was a ton of language for parents to really understand what's going on. So they worked really hard in teams and sort of made it a more user-friendly book for parents. It all aligns with our school policies, so anything within our handbook aligns with the school policies that are on our website. Simple things are really, we just did format and cleanup of little things that were in there. The beginning part of our handbook, we aligned all of the caregivers to say parent and guardian. That was one thing that was sort of a commitment that we really wanted to make sure was embedded within our handbook because we do have a lot of guardians. Within chapter 3, things that we looked at were just our drop off and pick up with the changing dismissal times. We cleaned up and clearly defined our absentee policy, which aligns. In chapter 4, we condensed and took out homework. We made simple suggestions for parents within chapter 4 on how to best improve their literacy in math with some simple things within our handbook, but things that are very age appropriate and developmental expectations. We changed the term guidance to counselors because our guidance counselors really are doing the work of counselors. In chapter 7, which is our behavior in school in general, we looked at school ground use. We removed overnight field trips because we no longer do that as we're only to 2nd grade. We changed our media center rights, which outlined the school environment and really aligned it with what's typical in all the other schools. And we addressed bathroom needs within our school behavior. And then in chapter 8, we updated our agreed upon rules and removed sort of a negative piece to that, kept it more positive, and then just updated our lunch and things that happen on the daily.
Thank you, Kim. Chantel, comments, questions?
Congratulations on getting through. Can't imagine what your team went through going through.
Truly, school council and Principal Kubish.
So thank you all. I have no questions. Just great work.
Esmeralda?
I have no questions.
Laura?
I have no questions. Thank you, Kim.
Tim?
No questions.
The only comment I would have is school committee is, I think the terms are correct, but the
Roles.
positions up, but
We
that,
noticed that.
Actually, the terms are not correct. I was
they're
going to
not
send it to
either.
Kate.
Okay.
Esmeralda and I are in our second.
Oh, that's right, you are.
I'll work with Ms. Fidel on
Yeah.
that.
It's
Just
okay.
Update that.
We're not offended.
For you.
It's no
We're
offense.
just here for longer than is stated.
Okay.
That's great. Thank you for getting through this. This is a lot, so thank you. Okay, Donna Johnson, to come up, thank you. for NIS. Hello there.
In the copy that was sent via email, I highlighted the changes that were made. However, what isn't in there is the table of contents was a little off, so I fixed that, just so you're aware. We updated, Becky Janda and I, excuse me, updated, you know, the normal things, like the school committee roles and term expiration. I hope that they're right.
Thank you, Donna.
As well as our admin team. On page 8, we added that visitors may be directed to sign in using Raptor, which is our new system in the front office. I don't think it's in there yet, but it's on this draft because it's a pretty new addition. We did add some language about students having access to bathrooms to fit their needs for privacy or anything else. Page 32 and 33 were some bigger pieces were added. These really came out of a workshop that Becky Janda attended through Cape Cod Collaborative and their lawyer. And it really speaks to student searches, emergency removals, and expulsion. And finally, on page 37, we just changed sneakers to closed-toed footwear for students in PE. And I think that's all the major ones.
Thank you. Chantal? Esmeralda?
No question.
Laura?
No, thank you, Donna.
Tim?
I have a question. If
Sure.
you're having people sign in,
Mm-hmm.
do we take their pictures?
Their license is scanned through Raptor, which has their picture, so then their ID tag has their picture on it. So you couldn't, like, I couldn't walk around with Tim Leffries with your face. I mean, close, but. But yes,
Okay.
pictures are through ID.
Thanks.
That's great. Thank you
Alright,
very
thank
much.
you.
Thank you. Adrian Lombardi, the CPS. Hey, Adrian.
Hi. We had a couple of not minor changes. We did a few of the just kind of general year-to-year updates on our council, our staff members. We're still looking for a couple more school council representatives as well as some staff. So we're working on that. In the draft that I had sent along, I had also highlighted some of the changes, and I want to speak to one that is not in there, which is also the bathroom language that we've updated, where it's same as Donna spoke to, just you know, we can offer bathrooms for any of the needs that come up, whether they're single stalled, more private, or you know, multiple stalls in one bathroom. So that's in there in my copy, but might not be in yours. I think I'll probably go backwards because I can anticipate what the hot topics might be. We had a change this year with our grading policy. Years ago, we had a failure in middle school. A failing grade was below a 65, and I don't remember how many years ago we changed it to meet the high school and mirror them with a 60. Below a 60 was failing. Due to just some philosophical views at the middle school level around grading, our grading committee and faculty have changed it back to the 65. So below 65 is a failing grade at CPS. It kind of goes, I could speak if you have questions about it, but it really is meant to recognize our philosophy around the power of a 0, and so our staff don't particularly give zeros out. The bottom is a 50, mathematically speaking. That might be a whole other kind of PD session or conversation, but due to that, our staff really wants to see kind of that 65 go back into place. So that's under co-curricular participation, just based on what was presented even last school committee meeting around athletics and extracurriculars. Last year, we had some newer policies put in place by our health and wellness committee for the district, and so we have some language that represents that. Basically, just making sure we're providing and creating a healthy learning environment, and encouraging healthier snacks, and avoiding candy, soda, energy drinks, coffee. Those are some hot items. Not just only those, but just some examples. And then our big ticket item is our e-bikes. I saved it for last because we do have some things in the works that will change this probably next school committee meeting. I would imagine. Basically right now, the way it's written and what we do in the middle school and the high school, we have each student register their e-bike through the assistant principals. We review the expectations, the rules, kind of have a one-on-one review with them. They sign a contract. That information is shared home to their parent, and then they're given a sticker. It's different colors, whether it's middle or high, and they have designated parking out front. And if they violate that agreement, then their riding privileges are consequenced. Right now, we're in the works, Dr. Hallett's in the works as well, working with Officer Thompson, our school resource officer, in adding just a little more of a layer of a requirement for all students to register an e-bike needs to take a course with Officer Thompson within 30 days of registering the bike and having parents sign off on that piece. So that's just kind of another layer. So what you see is what we're practicing right now. We'll still stick with the stickers and all of that as well. But adding the layer of education with Officer Thompson and just that parent accountability too. So that's what we have at CPS.
Thank you, Adrian. Chantel?
All great changes. Thank you. Yeah.
Esmeralda?
No questions, thank you.
I'm just curious, are you monitoring helmet use with the e-bikes? I know that's a sticky wicket.
No, we're not with bike riders. We encourage them, we offer them. We know that the Sheriff's Department, Officer Thompson, will outfit anyone with a free helmet, a lock. All we can do is encourage, but that isn't something that I can monitor.
I don't blame
If
you.
I may, we don't really have the ability to ticket students.
Right.
So it's challenging because, yes, it is the law. Any student under the age of 16 needs to be wearing a helmet, whether it's an e-bike or a regular bike. Even scooters, technically, they're supposed to have. So it's hard, but we can put it in our contract and do our best to continue to encourage children to do it. But it's very challenging
Right.
to,
No, I know.
to do
I know.
anything police-wise. And they can't, as far as I understand, the Nantucket Police Department cannot ticket people if they don't have helmets.
It sounds like only if there's an accident.
Yes, that is the only,
Which
if
seems
they cause an accident, yeah.
Yes.
They can
Thank
be
you.
ticketed, so.
Tim?
No questions.
No, I thank you. I like all the changes that you've made, and I'm personally, as you've heard from me before, really happy to know that there's going to be additional training for the kids riding their bikes. And I know that there's some initiative in the community as well. I've seen that's happening, but as a school, we see how the kids ride their bikes. So I'm really, really happy.
And I think Officer Thompson has an element that she's bringing to the students where obviously it's not just on school property, it's out in the community, but really what are you seeing, what are you doing, what kind of helping kids see what that impact might be down the road if
Right.
with their decision making and that kind of thing. So.
What is the consequence if somebody is sitting in the car park and they see students flying past, on the sidewalk, and they're not able to stop them because they've already gone? Are they numbers on? I'm not sure what the
Yep,
permit looks like.
they all
Do
have stickers that are attached to their registration, but really timing wise, we can identify them pretty good on the cameras, and we have
Oh,
before. So
okay.
we've had a parent call the school and just say, I was dropping my kid off. There was kind of a blind spot. They were going up the wrong way. And we were able to identify the 3 kids right away and address them and address kind of that follow through
Yeah.
piece. So.
Because I
But
feel like
it's hard. You can't really chase them.
no,
down. No one
because
really
they're faster
can.
than I am.
So, but we know our riders,
Mhm.
and we're pretty diligent, both schools, about, come October, we'll go out and make sure that every bike and scooter does have a sticker so that we can check with our records. A lot of times this spring we have a resurgence of new riders. So, I think the plan, and I'm sure Officer Thompson will speak to it down the road, but offering kind of a class every month for a little while for kids to make sure we get everyone covered. So.
That's great. And I think if students start to realize there's a consequence when they are found to be breaking the rules on school property, that it will get out fast and will help other students to slow down. I know Chief Casper was also interested or supportive of the training. So, yeah, thank you.
If I may add a few things just to that one piece. As Adrienne shared, we are working towards adding an addendum to each of the school handbooks that does have a clear understanding of the of e-bikes. The important thing to note is that students are always permitted to use motorized bikes and e-bikes legally if they are of legal age outside of campus. On campus, though, our rule is no one is riding their bikes except on a roadway. So First Way is a roadway, and they can ride their bikes on First Way to get themselves to and from. But through parking lots and on sidewalks and places like that, it's not acceptable. So that is an area that we really need to be careful of, because that's where often some things do happen. And we want to train our students that, yes, you can certainly still have access to your bike, but you've got to walk it once you hit campus. So that's the big thing. And I think having parents involved as well, and them understanding that we're not joking around with this. It's important that they are aware of how their students are conducting themselves, driving, riding. It's important too. So I'm glad to have that as another layer.
Yeah. Great. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, Dr. Bardsley, look at you. You're already in place and eager to go.
Wanted to make sure I could pull it up. So thank you. I am excited to share with you some of the updates that we have around math in our schools, K to 12, but mostly focusing on the secondary level. We're going to talk a little bit about a curriculum update, get into the secondary math pathways, and talk about pre-calculus as well. So in June, I shared this chart with you about where we are. We're in our 4th year of doing work, some deep work in math. We started with the needs assessment in 2021-22, and we have been doing PD for 3 years around a math workshop model in K to 8. And so what that does is it provides a toolkit for the teachers to be able to differentiate. So it gives the structure that they can use, and then they can focus on the differentiation that needs to happen so that each student's needs are being met. That includes intervention, but also acceleration and extensions. We did a curriculum review in 2022-23 and implemented Reveal Math in NES, NIS, and NHS last year was the first year. We held off on CPS, and it was a very wise decision because they revamped the middle school program to align with K-5. So now we have the same curriculum in place, K-8, and we also have the math workshop model that we've been working on pretty diligently. So we're starting to get some momentum in terms of the structures and supports that we're putting in place in the classroom. This year, we're focusing on guided math groups, which I feel are the real power in the math workshop, because that's what allows the teacher to work with small groups of students around their needs. And when the students are doing that, other students have work that they're doing that's at their level. It's differentiated. So there's different stations or menu items that they are completing. So we're working on guided math groups, and we also have a math fact fluency plan in place for K-5, where we are trying to work on the strategies in K-2 and 3-5 really around the fact fluency. So those are the big things that are going on, and then CPS is in year 1 of the adoption. So this, again, just kind of summarizes what I just said around where we are with the implementation at the different courses in K-12 with the Reveal Math. In terms of the pathways, the secondary pathways, one of the things that the state is really asking us to consider is the college readiness and career readiness. And our purpose is really to strengthen the foundational math skills and abilities and have students think deeply around what their next step is after high school and which math best aligns with that. So this first one is our career readiness pathway. So you can see we have our math 6th, 7th, and 8th, and after 8th we have decision point. I'm going to come back in a few minutes and talk a little bit more deeply about grade 8 math. After grade 8 math, they have different options. Most students move on to algebra. There's also an intro to algebra course. And some of our students with a special services recommendation may move into transition math. After algebra, they move into geometry, and then algebra 2. And after algebra 2, their senior level course, they can take pre-calculus or advanced quantitative reasoning. If they would like to double up, they can take AP stats alongside pre-calculus. So this is our career readiness framework. In the one of the school committee policies is around the graduation requirements, and it currently says that there's 4.5 credits for math, including Algebra 1, Geometry, and Personal Finance. There's been a change in the curriculum frameworks, and the Personal Finance falls under Economics and the Social Studies and History frameworks. So that's a conversation that the school committee will need to revisit at a later time. In terms of our college readiness pathway, we have, again, the 6th, 7th, and 8th, Algebra 1, Geometry, and then we have a decision point. So we have added a course. This is the first year that's in place, and I'll explain in a minute why this is the first year. But we have an Algebra 2 and Pre-Calculus Compression class. So it is an honors Algebra 2 class that addresses both Algebra 2 and Pre-Calculus. And after that, the students move on to AP Calculus, AP Stats, or Quantitative Reasoning, whatever they would like to do. And they can double up if they would like to. If they decide to move from Geometry to Algebra 2, then they have the options of Pre-Calculus or AQR. So one of the things that has happened is that 4 years ago, we made a decision to move the acceleration point from grade 8 math to the junior year. And that's when Algebra 1 moved from grade 8 to grade 9. Now, this, I'm going to come back to this in a second. This goes back to the Common Core when it was adopted. So prior to 2010, many of the content standards repeated at grade levels. And algebra was distinct from middle school content. So you had your middle school content and then you moved on to Algebra 1. And then if you skipped a grade or if you accelerated, it didn't matter as much because it was separated. But what happened with the with Common Core is that the content standards, their coherence was tightened to avoid this repetition, and skipping grades creates these conceptual gaps. This visual is the best way that I can explain what's going on. So if we look here, this is the old Algebra 1 standards, or in this light gray, and you can see how that has been split up over Math 8 versus Algebra 1. So it essentially took what used to be a 9th grade class, and you can see about 2/3 of the algebra is now in grade 8 math. In addition, these darker colors here is content from geometry and Algebra 2 that is now appearing in grade 8 math and Algebra 1. And so what Common Core did is it shifted these standards down into grade 8 math. And grade 8 math is vital for our students to have in order to be successful in later courses. So we have this phenomena that's going on in the country around racing through algebra, and one of the things is it's showing is that it doesn't support student learning, and it often leads to conceptual gaps. It can negatively impact their math identity because it becomes difficult, and when something becomes difficult, then you start to internalize that and say, I'm not a math person. We see increased Algebra 1 failure rates, and we have a history of inequitable access and lack of diverse student representation in advanced courses. So when we had one decision point in grade 8 around who was taking algebra, oftentimes it was based on a couple of teachers' recommendations or one data point. By moving that to the junior year, it's more equitable because you have more data that you can look at, and the student tends to know which direction they want to go with their career. So there's more self-advocacy over what their needs are. So I'm going to talk here around mathematics as a filter versus a pump. All right? So over time, what's happened is mathematics has come to be this filter, right? As you go on in the years, from 9th grade to freshman to a bachelor's degree to a master's degree, traditionally what we've been doing is filtering students out as the courses get harder and harder. So you have less students in the higher degree classes. What we need to shift is this into a pump where we are providing more students the ability to move into those higher level classes. So some of the research is showing that from high school through graduate school, we lose half of the students from mathematics each year. And 2/3 of the students aren't succeeding in existing course sequences. And enrolling these students in courses before they're ready obviously has negative consequences. Calculus itself is also really fascinating. So in this pie graph over here, these are all students who have taken calculus before. So they took calculus in high school, and this is the data showing how they did and what courses they took after high school. So you can see this part right here, which is about 20% of the students. So all of the students took calculus in high school, only 20% were able to go on to calculus 2 or higher. Over here, this purple color, these repeated calculus 1 and earned an A or a B. About 20% of the students repeated calculus 1 and earned a C or lower. And this is what's staggering to me. About 40% of the students who took calculus 1 in high school then were tested into lower level maths that they had to go back and repeat because they were missing the foundational skills. So I think this research is really important for us to consider when we're talking about slowing down, really learning the foundation and building upon that foundation so that they can be pumped into the higher level math. And that's not done in isolation. That's why we've been doing so much work around the structures and the routines in the classroom. We're building our toolkits so that we're better able to meet all students' needs. And this pretty much reiterates what I just said. I don't think there's this piece right here. Mastery of the mathematics considered preparatory for calculus was found to have more than double the impact of taking a high school calculus course on students' later performance in college calculus on average. I think that sums it up very nicely. The other thing that's really interesting to note, that mixed ability grouping benefits students at both high and low levels. Interestingly, it benefits our higher attaining students more because they have the opportunities to work in greater depth. So giving them the time to do the deep sense making is super, super important. I think we also need to think about mathematics as a web and not a ladder. So we've seen so often if you take this math course and then this one and so forth. But there isn't a hierarchy in terms of STEM, statistics, quantitative reasoning. We need to allow multiple different pathways and to meet students' needs so that they can go in different directions based on the careers that they want to develop. I'm going to go back for just a second because I skipped. Sorry for flipping. I skipped a slide here. We are also trying to provide alternative routes to acceleration for our students through accelerating in their junior year, doubling up in their senior year, some summer programs. And then one of the things I'm really excited about are some of the computer science and engineering options that we have been adding at the middle school and the high school. So again, we're coming back to this applied learning, this ability to think and to provide relevant context for our students so that they are making sense of real world problems. All right. So this slide was actually comes from the Massachusetts University system, and they in counseling students into like their careers and the math courses that they would like to see in high school that relate to those careers. You can see that they have developed these 4 categories: STEM, statistics, quantitative reasoning, and elementary education. And they have recommended high school courses that they believe match on to those. So again, we're talking about a counseling component in terms of helping our students understand what they need for the careers that they want. But it's important to note that this is a mechanism to build relevance and connection. It's not locking anyone into pathways. So one of the questions that we've been working around is this question of, is there a benefit of adding AP pre-calculus? So I want to remind you about our pathway. And our pre-calculus class is right here. It is after Algebra 2, moving on to pre-calculus. Our other students who are in an Algebra 2 pre-calculus compression class, which is different. That's an accelerated class that covers both those content areas. In the last 2 years, we have been working with Steve Leinwand, and he is a researcher with AIR in DC. And because of some of the innovative things that we've done around algebra and the thinking that we're trying to do around how to really increase our toolkits at the high school, he has come and has worked with us around professional development. We've been working around relevance, reasoning, and rigor for the last 2 years. And so we did take our thoughts around this to him and get feedback as well. So the first thing that's really interesting about AP Pre-Calculus is that it's the only AP course that's not considered a college course. And most colleges, some may take it, but most colleges do not take it for advanced placement course credit. And students are charged $100 to take a test that duplicates what we're already offering at the high school level. It's focusing on breadth of content versus depth of learning. There are 58 topics that are covered in their scope and sequence. And that leads to further direct instruction because you have to cover so many different things. And it's moving further away from the pedagogical practices that we've really been trying to focus on. And what we want is to really develop critical thinkers and engaged citizens. We want the deeper learning. It's interesting, I'm going to go on a tangent for a second. DESE has this framework that they've been putting out, and they want to know that all students are known and valued, which I feel is work that we've been doing around responsive classroom in K-8. It's restorative practices at the high school. Like, that part is really, really important. And it's embedded in the work that we're doing in classrooms. They have learning experiences are relevant, real world, and interactive, which is this piece that I keep bringing up around we have to make it make sense for the kids. We have to be able to answer the question of why are we learning this? And that's when they become more engaged and they start thinking more deeply about the content. And then individualized supports that enable students to excel at grade level. And that is the structure and the routines, the math workshop that we've been talking about. How do we best differentiate for students? And I think that comes back down to this topic of the breadth of content versus the depth of learning. We really want to focus on that depth of learning. And it's interesting that AP Pre-Calculus and AP Calculus, even though they take the test on a computer, they only allow them to use a graphing calculator. And that's limiting what our students are able to do. Like, there can be some really amazing deep thinking that they're doing around mathematical modeling that they're not allowed to access in that platform. And we know that assessment drives instruction. And so if we're following an assessment that does that, it's less likely that we're going to see that happening in our classes. And then come back to this topic of audience, which I pointed out who the students are that would be taking this, who are in the pre-calculus class. And just going back again to the calculus research, we saw the research that shows that if they're in a STEM, if they're going into a STEM career, they're going to have to take calculus over again no matter what. So it's important that we're providing the foundation that they really need in deep, meaningful ways. So for all these reasons, we do not see adopting AP Pre-Calculus as a prudent way to best serve our students. We would rather focus on rich modeling and pedagogical practices that are allowing students to do deep thinking.
Wow.
I wish you were a little bit more passionate, Mandy.
And this is something we've been engaged in together for 4 years. We're on a path, and we're excited about the collective efficacy that we are gaining, the momentum that we are gaining in math.
Okay. All right, did everyone digest all of that? Chantal, would you like to go first?
Sure. I'm going to borrow some of your words really quickly, but the breadth and depth of your knowledge we're so fortunate to have that in our district. Your passion shines through. Every time I hear you talk, I'm like, yeah, you better listen, because you got something to say. So I appreciate that so much. This question has come up a number of times, and I'm really appreciative that you all took the time to address it head on as opposed to shy away from it, and the amount of research that you put into your explanation is so greatly appreciated. I hope that all those who had questions and questioned the decisions being made feel like those have been addressed, and I certainly appreciate it.
Esmeralda.
Wow. um, Speechless. It's a lot of information to digest. I have no questions though. Just thank you for all this.
I just so I can kind of synthesize this. So, am I correct in that the deficit of that 40% that then go on to repeat calculus is a result of this racing through algebra concept?
Right. So they're not getting the foundation skills that they really need.
Okay.
And then it comes back to haunt them later on when they can't do the calculus because they can't do the algebra.
Mm-hmm.
Or they can't go, the classes beyond that.
So then the greater focus that we're putting on algebra will hopefully alleviate that
Our
deficit.
goal, and
Mhm.
we have been, as I explained, doing very deep work around our pedagogical practices and really thinking about our toolkits and how can we increase our toolkits as educators so that we can meet the needs of all students.
Great. Thank you.
And we still have work to do. We're on a trajectory,
Right.
and I have been talking about for 4 years that this is a long-term trajectory that we're talking about, but we're moving in the right direction.
Thank you.
Tim.
I am going to have to reread all of this, but thank you very much. I appreciate the discussion.
Yeah, there's a lot to digest. First question I had, and it was only because it's got a decision point, but I couldn't see what the decision point was. Under the graduation requirement, you've got math 6th, 7th, and 8th. I don't have a page number.
Are you on
But
the college
it
readiness
came right
or
under the
career?
math pathways, college readiness, career readiness.
Okay.
And it is the algebra and then breaking it down and then geometry. Then you've got a little box that says decision point.
I think that's a mistake that I took out today.
Oh, okay. Because I was wondering what the decision was.
I'm fairly certain that's what happened because I
Okay.
remembered
Oh,
seeing that
Let me
today.
just see if it's another. Oh. No, it's a different one.
Okay.
It's the one before that.
Let me go back. Sorry for the flipping.
Yeah, you took it out. Okay. Sorry. When you were talking about the different levels for the students working with the differentiated instructions, is that done on a screen, which I'm presuming it is, and who decides at which level the students are working on the issues?
So the way we have the math workshop set up is that we start with a number routine, which gets students talking about a math problem, and they're sharing the strategies. So it's not necessarily about getting it correct or incorrect. It's around sharing their thinking of how they're solving the problem, because there's a lot of rich discussion because there's multiple different ways to do that. And if you can start sharing the strategies, you can have conversations around which strategy is more effective or efficient or easy. And so you get the kids helping the other kids move their math pedagogy along a path. So number routines, then we do a lesson launch, which is usually something that's really relevant to the kids around the topic that we're about to learn. Then we do about a 20-minute mini lesson where all the students are learning the current content. And after that, then we break up and we do a math workshop. So some teachers do it in terms of station rotation, and there can be different stations that all the kids move through. Other teachers do it as a menu, and there are some must-dos and some may-dos. And when we have these structures in place, those items that they're choosing to do or being asked to do are differentiated to meet their needs. So there could be a station that's on fluency. There could be a station on the current content that they're learning. There could be a spiral review. Then there likely is something on the computer that they're doing, but it's one portion of what they're doing. And the teacher's also pulling the students and working with them. At the same time, we've been working on our intervention and making sure that we're meeting the needs of all of our students through different, we have some teachers who are pushing in, and then we have some that we're working with students pulling out. So we're trying to define all that and revise it so that we have a system where we're tackling this from a lot of different directions.
I can't tell you how much I love that answer, and the fact that the way that it's being taught, that it's through discussion and dialogue, as opposed to traditionally one person standing in front of a board like this talking.
And there is a time and place for direct instruction. So we're not saying direct instruction is
Oh, I'm
not
not saying
happening,
that.
but it is
Yeah.
one piece of the bigger picture.
But it just helps the comprehension and for many students, and I would be one included, to be able to talk it through and hear it from others is so valuable. Thank you. I'm so excited.
I have one
Rushing
more question.
through
Okay, wait.
rushing through curriculum. I know when my kids were coming through the schools that I would hear that through the teachers so often, that we just don't have enough time to teach what we're teaching, and the curriculum's so vast. So I love the fact of the way that you're all looking at this is like, let's make sure we get the foundations and we have a solid footing, because I do think not just us historically, but in general, we're always looking to get to the end to say we've been able to do this, but we're not actually focused on who's actually understanding this. And to your point, when you go into college, or when our kids graduate and go to college, they end up having to repeat a lot of the classes. So
And I would add to that, we are trying to center the professionalism of teachers. No curriculum should be used straight out of the box based on, like, we need to be adapting based on the students in front of us. And that's, we're trusting our teachers, we're helping them increase their toolkit, and then it's setting the expectations, and we're providing the support so that we're all moving in the same direction, so that we're building on top of each other.
and the teachers have the support if they feel like they're not getting through the curriculum, that they have you to go to, or the principal to go to
Or their team leader.
the
We're
team.
starting building-based math teams this year, and so we're trying to think about sustainability and how do we keep this moving over time. We have this challenge of turnover that we'll likely continue to have. So how do we onboard our new teachers so that they can quickly get up to speed with the learning that we've just done over the last 3 and 4 years?
The Algebra 8th, I in 8th grade, I've been here long enough that is a hot topic for particularly parents whose children are advanced in math, and they know that by 8th grade, that they know they want it to go onto a science or a medical future, and I'm sure you get probably still questions from families. I know the private schools teach algebra, so if you've got students coming in to high school from one of our private schools, well, now we just one for middle school, sorry, but how are you working with families and students to support?
So there's a couple of different things going on there. So I hear a question around communication and how are we communicating with our parents around this. And this is something that perhaps we need to do a better job around. The decision around why we are moving the acceleration point. And that's the key word, is like we're moving the acceleration point. We're not holding students back. They're still getting to the same higher level math classes that they were before. They're just accelerating later. So we can do a better job of that. In terms of our students coming in from private schools, we ask them to take a placement test, and they have to score at a certain level. And if they do show the proficiency in algebra, then they can go on to take geometry. But that is something that we've worked with the private schools to get in place, and it seems to be working fine in terms of what we're doing. I have had, some students who are like right on that borderline, and I've had those tough conversations with some parents around, this isn't likely this isn't in your child's best interest in the long term. And oftentimes when we take the time to explain the research around this, then we end up in an okay spot.
And would the same be of a public school student who may have done an accelerated summer course and their parents wanted them to go into geometry?
So that's something that we've been doing more research on, is what are some other acceleration points that we can do for our students that, the 2 or 3 students that we might have in a grade that are ready for more. and we're working on it, but I don't have, it's not as clean as some of the other information yet.
Yep. Well, I love all the work and hours that you've all taken to
This has been a complete group
Yes.
effort in
Yeah.
terms of moving this work.
And just my last, it's not a question, but I realize personal finance has gone into social studies. I really hope it remains a graduation. I know that's this
Oh, it's-
table here, but
It's in
I just hope
economics
it
right
will.
now in terms of the curriculum frameworks,
Yeah.
and that is a school committee decision around the graduation requirements, and there is still a lot of emphasis on it in the state. I would also just like to emphasize that DESE is trying to help districts move in this direction in terms of the math pathway. So this isn't something that's being done in isolation. This is something that they've been working on with district leaders. And there's a lot of conversations going on at the state level of around how to do it and when to do it and that sort of thing.
I think not only in math, but I think in any content. I remember the study that came out of Harvard and several years ago, where they took students from high school who had done well in an AP class, and then gave the same test back to them at the beginning of like their college year, and the difference of the scores, because a lot of it was just memorized, and then time went by. So to talk about the depth and the stability of what you're learning, I think is so key, because otherwise it's good to remember it for a day, but we need it ongoing. That's it. I'm going to stop. You had something else to say.
No,
Sorry.
If I may, through the chair, I just want to thank Dr. Bardsley, because she is such a knowledgeable person on our team,
Yes.
and has done so much work, so dedicated, and I am incredibly grateful because she's been able to move this forward, which is really not easy at all when you've got when you are learning, when you're dealing with people who don't have as much knowledge about this. So I'm grateful, and thank you for everything that you've done for
Thank
me,
you.
for everybody. So thank you.
Thank you, Mandy. Thanks. Okay, moving on to committee discussions and votes to be taken. I don't know about the first one. No, sorry. Just kidding, just kidding, Travis. May I have approval, please, for the November 26th early dismissal date due to the Island Cup? May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. May I have an approval for July 23rd, the executive workshop session meeting minutes? May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. May I have an approval for August 13th executive session meeting minutes? May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. May I have approval, please, for the transfer and invoices?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. All right, subcommittee work group reports.
If I may, it is a little early, yes, but the policy subcommittee, get ready, because we do have a scheduled meeting at the end of September. Just a reminder to the group and to the public that this is our only meeting this month, our full meeting, because we have a special town meeting on the 17th, which is our usual day. So our next full meeting will be October 1st. If we are able to receive state MCAS results from the state, we're waiting on state results. We will try to schedule another meeting for a workshop, but it may push into October. So just so that you're aware, we're kind of waiting on that to share our results from the district level in order to have those comparisons. And then I can certainly go on if you wish to
Please. Yep.
to the agenda for the next meeting. So I will be sharing my goals for 2024 to 2026. We will share the budget planning calendar. I can't believe it's already budget time. The first day of school comes and you think, I haven't even seen what's going on this year, but here we are. Directives. We will have our SRO with us to provide a presentation, and the high school will present their handbook. So those are the things for next term. Anything else?
Yes. Um, there, sorry, I am stepping down from school committee. It has been 12 years that I've had the honor to be on your school committee. I have realized that with my new endeavor at our house, I can probably best serve students as the director of our house, because I am limited in some ways on working with students, being a school committee member. And so it's with a heavy heart, but also a happy heart. I have talked to Dr. Hallett about this and my fellow school committee members. And I think the timing is good because it allows somebody to step in and experience what the role is like for the next 5-6 months. And I hear often from people that they're nervous about running an election or a campaign, or they don't know if they have the time to serve on the school committee. It's a perfect time because they'll be coming in at budget season and they'll be able to really see and understand the work that the committee does. So I'm here till October, and as I said, it's a heavy heart, but I think it's the right decision for everybody, and I look forward to seeing who is willing to step in to this seat and be able to continue on until the next election period.
May I confirm that you're here till November?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Not so fast.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not leaving tonight, but it's public, and I wanted to make that announcement myself. Anything else?
I just want to say thank you, Pauline. You will be missed,
Thank you.
but we can pick your brain now.
Yes, I'm not going anywhere.
Yes, I know.
Just
But
down the
thank you.
road.
Thank you for everything you've done.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
May I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
It was so, I'm sorry.